June 7, 2024. This is the S&P 500 E-Futures Mini on the 2000 tick chart using NinjaTrader 8. This is what the chart looked like today. At around 5:30 Pacific Standard, which is about right here, there's a couple of news items that came out, the non-farm employment change and the unemployment rate. As you can see, it kind of spiked up really high, and then it crashed all the way down, and it followed through with a sell-off. So this candle formed in about 12 seconds. So that's a lot of trading, a lot of volatility. Overall, this is what the price action looked like. It had a sell-off, a 2-3 legged bounce, or just one big leg, another sell-off, then another bounce, then another, I guess, kind of a choppy sideways price action. Overall, it looked like it was kind of a big M-shaped configuration. I only took one trade today, and unfortunately, it was a losing trade. And then I do know why I lost after the fact, though, because I think I was just looking at it too. I was probably looking at it too closely because I'd already been sitting for 4 hours without taking a trade, and it got the best of me because I just took a trade that really wasn't the best setup. But then even then, the total price action, although there's a lot of movement here, it didn't really set up too many. It didn't create too many setups that I could identify as being high probability trades. There was a couple of almost setups and some possible setups. So this is what the pre-market looked like. You can see this big spike and flush back down. That was due to the economic data. So initially, before the market opened, I thought I found this channel because it fit nicely at the top 2 times though, and then at the bottom 3 times. So it is kind of a more shallow channel. And at this point in time, I thought we were going to be in a trading range. So it's going to be a range bound day. The market then opens. So it starts selling off, and I drew this orange down channel. It kind of consolidates. These are small candles, tops around. EMA is flattening out, and I think I'm in a trading range, which is this blue trading range. It was a little higher before, but then I dragged it down when it looked like it had a few touches here. So this is the range that I was working with. It does have a slight bearish bias to it. It starts moving. So similar to yesterday, you could find or you can identify second entries, but they're not necessarily high probability second entries because there's a new high here. It's a first entry long pullback. Technically, you get a second entry long here, but the setup just isn't clean because the EMA is running into potential issues. Signal bar isn't quite right. Overall context doesn't look clean. So I saw a bunch of that yesterday as well as today. So that made finding good setups a little more sparse today. I didn't quite see that many. Prices then continue moving up. It starts moving up, and I first drew this supporting trend line first, and then I drew another trend line here just to try to contain it. But there's more confirmation to the bottom of this trend line than at the top, so I trust any longs more than I would trust going short because I don't know if this is really containing the price action, or it could be potentially this midline of this channel. Prices then continue moving up. So it kind of hits a peak, and it looks like it's starting to sell off. It has a break. There's a first entry long. Technically, you have a second entry long here. I don't like this setup though because it's an inside bar. It is a very strong signal bar, but it's just right above the EMA. If this candle had not broken through the EMA, and then this candle, it could start off low, but as long as it closed above the EMA, then I would have considered it a clean second entry long potentially to test the highs of this break of this yellow up channel. But it didn't quite do that, so I didn't really like it. Nevertheless, it looked like it might have stopped you out anyways. Prices then continue chopping. So at this point, I was trying to find a larger trading trend channel here, and I just drew a preliminary purple trend line. It was actually just a blue trend line at one time, just here as a placeholder because I was thinking maybe there's some bounces off of here, and it actually was a little bit lower to kind of not have this overshoot. Price is then trading in a range. You do have a new high, first entry long. Technically, you have a second entry long here, but this is just too tight. When you see this in real time, it just looks like you're in a range, and it's not quite trending to trust a second entry long. Bounces around, you'd have to live through this noise, potentially getting stopped out. Then it continues moving up. So this is kind of where I started adjusting my purple trend line. I wanted to touch here, There's a small overshoot here, but I wasn't too concerned because it looked like it fit pretty well. The prices continue moving. It gets noisy. It falls into this trading range. And as you can see, these candles are getting bigger and bigger. Like each successive candle, starting from pretty much this guy, is bigger than the previous. So this one's bigger than this one's bigger than this one, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. So that's telling me, okay, there is not a very clear bias because every time the next candle prints up to this point, the bears and bulls have been pushing it to the extremes and pulling it way back down. And depending on who is in charge, you have a close at the highs and lows. So what's telling me is it's very, very undecided what's going to happen. There is a bullish bias right now, showing that prices are moving back up, but that's not reliable enough to find or to declare that, okay, I'm going to look for a long trade. I need this to clear itself out. The next candle, it is a little smaller, but it also ticked above. So I'm still just sitting on my hands. This will actually see a almost trade because this, I'll explain why. So I see a new high here. It's a failed breakout. It's a first entry long. This creates a second entry long potential. So it's first entry long, pull back, breaks below, comes back up. So technically, I don't have a second entry long yet. If this candle had broken above this one, then it'd be first entry long, pull back, and in the same candle, it would have created the second entry long. So here I'm thinking there's a potential second entry long here that is bouncing off the purple, but I need to see what happens on the next candle. But I don't like that this is near the highs of this very tight channel. Even though it did bounce off the EMA, it's just there's no room to really take this trade. Looked like it would have worked though. So this one, if I took it, I don't think I could justify really calling it a high probability. It would have just been kind of a lucky trade because it broke. There's 4 candles to try to recover the big range of this guy, and then it flashed up. It's not, nothing says that it couldn't just break through because remember, I'm not really sure this purple channel is reliable. I just know that this support is potentially reliable. So I called it an almost trade. If you're more aggressive, you might have taken it. It would have worked out well though. Prices then continue moving up. I see a potential yellow up channel breaks out of the pre-market trading range. Technically, the pre-market high is way up here, but I felt like I was going to treat this area here as the top of the range because just fit better because this is a impulse big spike up and then flush back down on news. So it's not quite as reliable. The prices break out of this yellow up channel. It pushes and tests and makes a new high, continues up, it kind of hits the top and then it starts floating back down. And as you can see, this dotted line is actually the highs, the absolute highs of the day, which was created during that news announcement. Prices then kind of reverse. And I do see this as a new high. It's a first entry long. Right here, it's a new high. It's a first entry long. This one broke slightly above this one. Pull back. And on this candle, it creates a second entry long. And at the same time, it creates a second entry long failure. I thought this was a possible trade because it is the break of this green down channel. It broke, pushed up, and tested and made a new low. The thing that does have a positive going for it is it looks like it's moving back into this trading range. And I'm thinking, excuse me, I didn't see all of this yet. Okay, so I'm thinking there might be enough momentum here to at least come back down before I have to be concerned about a possible bounce off this purple up channel because this purple uptrend line has been holding pretty well. So there's no reason to believe that it won't continue possibly to hold here. I saw one leg down, 2 small legs up, and a potential second leg down. But after I saw this big flush down, I was a little concerned because this candle is a 3.375 point candle, or in other words, it's about the 4, 5, 15, 15 ticks, which is, it feels a little bit large. Excuse me, not 15 ticks, 3, so 4, yeah, 15 ticks. So it just felt a little bit large, but if you were more aggressive, I think you could probably take it. It would have worked. You'd have to sit through probably 2 of these candles. Prices then continue moving down. I drew this orange down channel. Fits pretty nicely. It's moving clearly back into the trading range. Creates a new low and it starts reversing back up. Here's your first entry short. Pull back. and it creates and confirms a second entry short. But unfortunately, this is an almost trade because it's a break of this orange down channel. It made one attempt down. This is already the second attempt down. I don't know I would take this trade right here, but after here, you get a confirmed first entry short, pull back, second entry short. I'm not super confident it's going to come all the way back down to here. EMA is holding prices, but also this green correction could be one push up, tested the highs, made a new high, and then it started to reverse down. So if this candle had been a little bit better, kind of like closed at the lows or even one tick below this guy, that would have been perfect. And I think I would have been uh, more in tune to take this trade. It looks like if you did take it, you would have been reversed and stopped out. Let's see, this is from here to here. This is only 3 ticks. So even for a 1 point profit target, you would have lost on this trade. So yeah, my read was it was an almost setup, so it definitely needed to be a little bit cleaner. Plus, I didn't mention, but looks like it was in a range at this point. And after the confirmation of this second entry short, you don't really have that much room. So that was another thing factoring in to not make me feel that eager to take this trade. When prices move up, it moves up the screen channel, breaks, tests, and makes a new high. Keeps going up, so I thought maybe it's a part of a bigger channel, but it didn't really matter at that point because it broke out, fell down on this orange channel, made a new high, first entry long pullback. Right here, it looks like it's about to create a second entry long and a triple test. So the this is a possible trade. I thought it was a little more aggressive. The signal bar, which is pretty much this guy, is pretty good, but I didn't like that it kind of closed right. I mean, you could argue that it's right at the EMA, but I saw it as slightly below because it did have room for one more tick. I wanted this candle to close the highs for this particular setup for me to even consider it because it is a break of this orange down channel, tested it, made a new low. It's bouncing off this potential triple test. So there's a few things going for it, but it just, even though EMA is flattening, just one more thing would have made me feel a little more confident taking this trade. So unfortunately, I skipped it. It looked like it would have worked though. The risk is 2 points, so it's 8 ticks. And then prices continue moving up. It gets a little sideways because look at in real time. I saw like, okay, there's a doji here, doji here, doji here, doji, doji, and these aren't really that much better. So this is just telling me there is a lot of struggle between the bulls and bears right now. The bears look like they had a little bit of control, but then bulls are starting to come back in, so the buyers are coming back in. But I'm just not too keen on seeing so many doji bars. Prices then continue moving, and again you have another one. So you do have a new low, say first entry long, but then the count resets and you don't really have much. It kind of gets rejected off this pre-market high, but then it starts breaking through. No clean setups that I can really look at and like. You have a first entry long here. Technically, you have a second entry long here. This is your signal bar, and then it's confirmed here. I didn't really like this. You could argue, yes, it kind of flushed down and made a strong push up. But now I'm worried that I might be running into a possible resistance here at the EMA and a possible resistance on this green up channel. So there is enough room to scalp out right here, but it just felt I didn't really want to press my luck on this particular trade because it could be a failed breakout and another push back down into the range. So there's just a little bit of ambiguity here. Chops up. This ideally would have closed bullish, then it would have been a higher low, and that would have been perfect. That would have been a nice clean setup because you could see a higher low, and then it would have worked out perfectly. Unfortunately, it didn't happen, so I didn't even mark it. So I saw this as a localized new high. I saw this as a first entry long pullback, creates a second entry long. But here, in real time, I also saw this as a new low, first entry short, potential second entry short, a potential second entry short failure. Now, the second entry short failure, you don't know it's going to fail yet, but it is a break of this yellow up channel. It needs to test new high. It looks like it's made one attempt, pull back, and this could be the start of a second attempt to test this high. So unfortunately, as I was watching this, I don't think I was quite in tune. I was a little checked out, so I didn't quite identify this potential trade until, this candle formed. Then I saw, oh man, I just missed a potential trade. Prices then continue moving up. So here I've already been sitting for about 3.5 hours of no trading and watching kind of a dry day. There wasn't too many setups that I could identify. And that kind of sets up for my one and only trade that turned out to be a bad trade. So it makes a localized, makes a actually global high of day, pushes down. It makes a first entry long pullback. This is where I actually take my first trade. So I saw this as a new high. I was still playing off the strength of this green up channel because the support fit really nicely. There was a break here already. So now this green support isn't as strong. Plus, this this price action never made it back to the top of this channel. So this could have, the integrity of this green up channel is in question. But when I saw this in real time, I'm thinking, okay, first entry long, second entry long. The signal bar wasn't the best, but I thought it's good enough for me. I want to jump in on this trade. Now, keep in mind, this is already 4 hours of pretty much sitting on my hands watching candles print slowly. And I should have known better. So when it actually ticked above, so it actually opened here, it ticked above without waiting for this candle to give me more confirmation to wait for it to close. I jumped in one tick above. Now, I didn't see a trading range here yet in real time, but I jumped in expecting at least another quick move up, trusting that this green support is strong, not keeping into consideration that it might have broken out here already, and it's starting to show weakness on this line. Plus, this orange down channel has broken. It probably wants a second attempt come down to here. So this is the first attempt. I should have thought about that. And then there might have been a second attempt to come back down. So I didn't think about that. I just took a trade. And this is the second attempt. And it made the new low. So that ended up being a red trade, a totally avoidable red trade, unfortunately. But I was just too eager. Not necessarily eager, but I think I was doing what I have always tried to avoid, and I'm still working on avoiding, is I'm starting to invent setups in my mind just because my mind's starting to drift and I'm thinking I should have taken a trade by now. But then prices then get sideways, so this is just noisy. If I didn't get stopped out by this candle and I kept it, like let's say below here, I'd have to sit through this noise and that risk reward just isn't worth it. I saw a new low here. I saw a first entry short, pullback, and on the same candle here, it creates your second entry short. This also a triple test. So this is a possible trade. This is a very strong close. It went up and it closed the same lows. It only would have been better if it closed, with a break below here. But I thought this might have been a possible trade because it went up one tick and flushed down. Turns out turned out to be a very good trade if you took it. There's also enough room to the lows. But by here, I wasn't. I was kind of like not dialed in as I should have been. And if prices then continue moving down, it breaks out of this green down channel, makes a new low, but it kept going. So then I looked for a larger channel, and it started to break out of this larger channel, but the downtrend was still in play. So I'm thinking it was probably a two-piece, kind of a multi-piece channel, which is where I drew this orange one, which fit really nicely. Unfortunately, I couldn't take a setup here because I didn't see any clean setups. The first entry short, technically get your second entry short here, and it's a failure because I failed on here, but this is just ambiguous. I didn't really like this price action, so it just left me sitting on my hands. Then price is chopped. It kind of enters another sideways consolidation. It's a little noisy. You do technically have a new high, first entry long, second entry long, but I'm not really thinking second entry long necessarily because it looks like I'm more sideways consolidation. But I do see one leg up, potentially a sideways movement, and then another leg up. But I needed a clean setup. This is a higher low, but I thought this could potentially be a fail breakout with prices moving back through, but it doesn't, and it just keeps going. You do have a new low here, first entry short, second entry short, and second entry short failure, which may or may not have been a setup. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark it here, like a failed second entry short, which I think in hindsight maybe might not have been too bad because you are breaking out of this range. It's clearly showing the failed breakout isn't working, so it could be a failed breakout pullback. Then prices started moving up, so it would have been enough for a quick scalp. Then gets prices start flushing back down. Technically, you have a new high here. First entry long pullback, second entry long. It's not a good signal bar. It's kind of bouncing off of nowhere. Also below the EMA. It is a break of this purple up channel, but this purple up channel really isn't confirmed that well. There's one touch, two touch, potentially a third touch, but I wasn't that a big fan of this. I'm going to actually go ahead and delete this. Prices then start moving back down. So it's a new high, new localized high. First entry long pullback, second entry long here, but seeing this in real time, it's a break of this yellow down channel. And you see this, it didn't have very good follow through. Then it flushed up, and now I'm thinking I might have missed a trade. So I definitely didn't want to chase this. And it kind of chops sideways. The new localized new high, first entry long pullback, second entry long here, maybe a triple test, but it's a little ambiguous because you just came from a failed breakout. I'm not that big. I'm not a big fan of this setup here, being a new high, first entry long, second entry long, maybe a triple test, but also the EMA, even though it's starting to trend down, it could be acting as resistance, which it kind of did because it had this, attempt to break through and it closed low. So it's definitely sitting on my hands now. And plus, it's getting close to the end of the day. I didn't want to risk any additional losses. And the price is just kind of, because this is getting towards the last 10 to 20 minutes, it just gets really noisy. And in this, at this time of day, I don't really trust the setups as much because it can get really whipsaws. On top of that, these candles are turning larger and larger. So this candle here is like 4.75. And then like they're just getting very large. So it's easy to hit your stop all within the same candle. Or if you moved your stops to the extremes, then you're taking this gigantic risk. So fortunately, it was one trade day and it was a loser. And overall, there wasn't too many trades that I particularly liked. And it was kind of although there was some decent volume, it didn't translate to very many setups. So hopefully that was helpful.